you don't have a brand, even if you have a great brand, they may not be aligned with that brand. The brand is the experience that you're creating for people. They can capture that. They don't have to worry about comparing that to anything else in the past and so forth.
And tangibly, so it's not at a philosophical level. People have seen this where you go to a conference and Toyota's out front and you can test drive their car around.
Right.
That's a brand interaction. They're creating that so that you get a sense that you sample their brand.
Right.
And then hopefully you have a greater affinity to buy something from them in the future.
Right. As opposed to just seeing an ad.
That's right.
So let's walk through how. You've kind of walked through how with two of your examples. Maybe we can give you another one as an example. But if we're talking to somebody right now who's watching this interview, they're at home and they're saying, okay, I'm a doctor, I'm a dentist, I'm a chiropractor, I own a real estate firm. How do I take this in my venue and really be able to create some form of partnership marketing where I can really get some leverage, where I can really reach some new customers? How would you attack it in helping them to understand the process of how to go about this?
The first thing is, what do you have?
Right.
What are the assets or the knowledge that you have that's unique? I'll share another example to kind of make it as tangible. I did one with an ebook. I was an expert in leadership and innovation, so I create this ebook and I do it in Word, and I send it over to this corporation. We do this partnership for it, which we'll walk through that process.
Sure.
And we create this partnership for it. They PDF it, they design it, they make it great, they post it on their website, they advertise it, they promote it, and every time it gets downloaded, I get $3.21.
Right.
Now that got downloaded 117,000 times.
Wow. Extraordinary.
Now this is a good business.
Was this them marketing to other people, this product, or was it within their own organization?
Both. Okay. Market internally to their own organization and then out to they have people who go out in the sort of like
and
a sales
and they have the credibility, so they're
That's
giving you that credibility immediately.
Yeah, and so I'm getting the credibility because I wrote it. It's getting downloaded, and now I'm the expert in that market. So I'm getting $50,000 speeches out of nowhere because this thing's getting downloaded by all these clients. People are, my business explodes. Again, you're tapping into their pools.
Right.
So how do you do it? The first thing is, what's your unique content or your unique experience, or what's unique about you that you have? But backing away from that, because I know most people watching this, they say, okay, I know what that is. I'm a chiropractor, I'm an expert at so-and-so.
Right.
Well, the next question is, who's reaching your audience? Who is already reaching your audience?
Yeah, your target, your ideal customer too, because most people don't even think about their ideal customer. They think about any type of customer.
Yeah. Where's that super train? There's already a super train that's reaching them.
Right.
Who is it? What organization is already capturing your audience?
Got it.
That's the magic point. So you find out who's capturing their audience, and then what you have to do is, okay, I know it's this organization. Now your next thing is, well, who is the organization? And your job is to do some research, figure out what's important to this organization. And I always tell clients, you're looking for two things. What's the mission of the organization? What are they trying to do? So that relates to their strategic priorities. What's the goal for them in the next 12 months? What are they focused on?
What is most important to them?
What's most important? And my little $1 million idea I have for people, how do you figure this out? You download their annual reports, you download all their press releases, you sit down with a big highlighter, a big red pen, and you go and you highlight all the phrases and the things that senior executives are saying.
You start to see a pattern after a while.
You see a pattern. And what they're doing is they're speaking the party line. But that party line is important.
Right.
Because
everybody lines up with that, especially in an organization of that side. Yeah.
Because everybody knows this, but I think they lose track of it. In a major corporation, the way a major corporation works is they set a strategy, and then from the strategy, everything flows down.
Right.
From the strategy, they build initiatives. From initiatives, they build a budget to support that initiative, and then they flow it all down. So if you can figure out what their strategy is and what their strategic priorities are, 2 or 3 things they're focusing on, which is always in their annual report or the press releases, you take all that phrasing and you think, okay, I know the audience, I know what's important to these guys. You focus now on what's their marketing messages. What are they saying to this group of people? So for example, I noticed Sony was saying something very specific to this college group. They were trying to help them understand rebellion and success. I thought, interesting, that was the message that they were using. And then I approach them with a project. Now the project, in one case, might be an ebook to reach their people. Another one, it might be a seminar.
Right.
Another one, it might be funding a tour across the country.
Right.
Another one, it might be an educational program. I have the world's largest leadership program. No one knows it's mine because it's a nonprofit that's rolling it out for me.
Right.
So we built it for them, and they're rolling it out. So educational programs, corporate programs, tours, events, causes, dreams, whatever it is.
All things that they would want to be a part of because it gives their customer another added value experience.
Right.
Meanwhile, it gives you the distribution channel that you want.
Right. So you got to figure out, well, what's the project? What are we going to do together? You got to come up with an idea that would be cool.
Right.
And so now you have this idea that's cool, and now the magic happens, the approach. And I think most people can sit and go, I can think of the project, I know what I got, I can think of the company, And then they say, well, how do I do it? And that's where some of the magic now comes in, based on what I just told you. So when you approach them, there's two different levels here. If you're approaching a nonprofit, it works different than if you're approaching a corporation.
Start with a corporation.
Okay. If you're approaching a corporation, you're going to email them. You're going to usually email the person in marketing. Usually the vice president of marketing is where I like to start.
Right.
And you're going to email them, and you're going to email them a very specific pitch that helps them get really excited about it. And the pitch starts like this. The first part of the pitch is alignment, where you say, hey, I see that you're trying to reach this demographic, and you've been doing marketing messages that are saying these things. It's interesting because I have some ideas about how we can further that and make it even easier for you to reach these people and add value to their lives. The reason I think we could add value to their lives is because I have this project, or this seminar, or this tour, or this book, or this cause. And that audience will also like this.
Right.
Why don't we team up together? And then you describe the project. So it starts with alignment, you describe the project, then you have to say who you are and why this is important to you. And I think you're really good about this in all the things that you're always teaching. You've got to be good at explaining who are you and what's important to you in life.
Right.
And so you explain that. I've sold more deals by explaining my car accident story than any project I could create. You know, they related with me and they said, hey, we like this guy.
Right.
Because another great thing about partnerships is you don't have to have the right answer. You know, this is a collaborative game. I would never come to you and say, you know, Tony, I would love to do these two things with you and only these two things.
Right.
I'm gonna say like, hey, Tony.
You get in proximity and you start brainstorming. You
Yeah,
it's
have
like,
the
same
hey,
outcomes.
Yeah, we're kind of reaching similar people. What could we do here? How can we team up? It's like, here's what I got and here's what you got. And it's very collaborative like that. But in this initial pitch, you're kind of given the project overlay. And then you say, here's all the benefits. Here's why you would want to do this. Right. Here's how it's going to connect with the audience. Here's why it's going to be something cool and different and unique.
Right.
And then you say, here's what we should do. And here's the deal. When you're pitching anybody, I think this is in business in general, when you're pitching somebody, you're not trying to get the deal. You're trying to get the conversation.
Right. The interest, the passion.
Everybody in sponsorship screws that up. They're trying to sell the sponsorship. We need $75,000 up front.
Right.
No, what you're trying to sell is the live in-person meeting.
Right.
And I think that's really important now in the economy that we've been watching, not just in the last 2 or 3 years, but over the last decade.
Right.
People really value the trust.
Yes.
And you got to get in a room with someone and say, here's what's real. Here's what we could do together. And you got to brainstorm together. And I've always been good at that collaboration part, you know, because I've never felt like I had to be the kid with the answers. Even when I was doing leadership consulting, I never felt like I had to be the kid with the answers. I asked more questions. And because I asked the questions, you know, the world opened up.
They like you too because you're so intelligent. Because they're able to talk to you and tell you their answers and you confirm them to a certain extent. That's what deepens a relationship. Most women understand that. Most men don't, right?
It's very true. And I think I learned that from one of your programs. You always talk about the power of questions.
Yeah.
And so I would just sit there and I'd ask questions.
Yes.
But they could tell I really cared about the answers.
Without a doubt.
And so this pitch, this email pitch to a corporation, it's just to get the live meeting.
Right.
And then you go in with the live meeting and you go through the same basic process. Here's who you're trying to reach. Here's how I might be able to add some value to that. Here's some benefits. You brainstorm with them. You ask lots of questions. And at the end of every sales meeting in history, if it's good, the person either says yes, but more often than not, they say, sounds great, send me something. And then you go home and you create the proposal. And that proposal goes back to them, and you create the proposal with them and make sure it's right, and then they take it to their superiors, and they vet it, and then it's a yes or a no.
Right. And that process that you've done, give us another example. You started to describe how you've done that in a nonprofit area as well. How is it different in a nonprofit area than a corporation?
Well, in corporation, you're almost always working with someone in the marketing division, because sponsorship, and this is really important, by the way, I didn't say this earlier, sponsorship is very, very different than like a grant.
Right.
Sponsorship, they're paying for the marketing value of something. So it's a marketing effort for them, most often than not.
Right.
Now, if you're doing something that's super community-based, cause-based, they're probably going to say, work with our foundation, work with our corporate social responsibility department. That's cool. But most of the time you start marketing and they'll tell you where to go from there if it's not a fit with them. Nonprofits, it's a little different, because you think about what are the two things a nonprofit has to do. There's only two things. A nonprofit, outside of serving their people, the entire organization of a nonprofit serves to do two things: raise awareness for their brand and their cause,
And raise money.
and raise funds.
Yeah.
And you can't raise funds without the awareness.
Right.
So when I approach a nonprofit, the reason I always get the deal, I've never failed with a nonprofit unless at the 99-yard line we decided something wasn't right between us, and usually a chemistry thing. I didn't trust that they were going to do what they said they were going to do, or vice versa sometimes.
Right.
And I would say, okay, if this is the case, and we're going to be working together, I want to build this project so it helps you raise funds and awareness. and the person who's in charge of raising awareness, but mostly funds for a nonprofit,
Right.
you go to the development people, the fundraisers. So the person who's in charge of raising awareness might be the marketing person in a nonprofit, but they don't really have the power. The person who has the power is the development people, they call them. That person who's in charge of raising money and spending money, that's the person you want to go to and say, let's create a project together that we get a message out and we both benefit. You get new volunteers, you get more cash, and I get, obviously, access to a group that I could never reach, and I get to give unique content to them.
Right.
So, for example, when we did our partnership, I remember with Life's Golden Ticket with Junior Achievement.
Yes.
Junior Achievement ends up taking my book and putting it on their homepage, and they do this whole thing around Life's Golden Ticket and why its story of making a difference is important to their people. Well, that story in that book, they post on their website, got like 6 million hits a month.
Wow.
You know how long it would take to build a website that gets 6 million hits a month, let alone a year?
Right.
You know, I can't do it, and I'm sure a lot of people who watch this and love the internet stuff, they recognize that number as magic.
Now, the benefit that they got by this association was they were promoting a philosophy. Tell me, from their perspective, what did they get from their relationship? Because they promoted your book on a regular basis, right?
Yeah. They promoted the book. They got a couple of things. They obviously got a lot of awareness. So in the back of the book, we listed them.
Oh,
I did a book tour to 42 cities, and every city, every time I'm talking about my message of making a difference, I'm talking about them. I'm talking about their mission. I'm talking about why I'm a volunteer for them. I'm talking about how when I'm living out my mission in my life, which is a message of the book, by the way,
right.
so it aligns, I would say I do it through Junior Achievement or Kiwanis or YMCA.
Right.
And so they're getting the awareness from the book. I'm also contributing a portion of the revenue for them.
Sure.
So I'm saying, hey.
So you have an income stream. I
Yeah.
understand. Okay, got it.
So they're getting an income stream from it. And everyone says, oh my gosh, do I have to donate 50% or 10% or 90%? And you run a foundation, a nonprofit, and I work with hundreds of them. And you and I both know, you don't care how much money you get from people.
Right.
And all these entrepreneurs always say, Brendon, I can't partner with nonprofits because they're going to want 50 or 100% of the revenue. It's like, if you give them 1%, they're happy. Now, I give way more than that because it's part of my mission, but a lot of people will be deterred because they say, well, I don't want to have to guarantee that I'm going to tie this much to them.
Right.
And I say, why not?
So many presuppositions, I think, that stop people from moving in this direction is they start thinking how they think that customer thinks, how they think that organization works, what they think is going to be required. And a lot of people get defeated in their head before it even starts.
Yeah.
So what are some of the, when people are going to go out and do this, some people are going to watch this and say, wow, he's a brilliant young man and what a great idea. And I love that idea of being able to hook on to a speeding train that already exists, but I don't have the brand or I don't have the idea. Not everybody's going to listen to this and act. I'm well aware of that.
Right.
This is something that somebody might watch 2 or 3 times and finally go, I'm sick of hearing them do this. I want to do this myself. I'm going to do this thing now. For the ones that are ready to act, they're still going to run into, like you do in any aspect of business, having a deal look like it's going and fall down. Tell me how you recover from those massive disappointments, because they haven't all just come together for you perfectly, or have they?
That's right. No, they haven't. I mean, it took 18 months just to figure out, wow, I'm doing a system. I have something I'm doing every single time, and it works.
Right.
And so it took 18 months of falling. I mean, I had a huge deal that I thought was going to go through with Big Brothers Big Sisters. It never went through.
Right.
And I was so upset because I love that organization. I still promote them like crazy.
Yeah.
But it just didn't go through because I didn't understand how to work with their senior executives yet. So there's a process.
So what didn't you understand that cost you in that deal as an example?
I didn't understand the most important rule in leadership and the most important rule in collaboration and partnership.
Which is?
People support what they create.
So true. Well, that's why it's a collaboration as opposed to something you're just selling somebody.
Yep. People
So it was
support
your
what they
creation you were selling to them as opposed to them being in the process of enrolling and creating what you guys were doing.
I thought I had the answer. Every salesperson in the world does this. I got this, product. It's got these features and these benefits. You should have it, right?
right.
And it's like, no. It's like you want to create, especially this day and age. We are in a different culture, and I don't mean, a lot of people say it's a generational thing. And I think generational training is a farce mostly. It's not that you and I are that different anymore because we're exposed to the same thing. My grandma is texting as much as a 14-year-old kid sometimes. And there are generational differences, but one thing that's common across the workforce now, especially in developed countries, is that creative collaborative edge.
Right.
That people want to collaborate together. They don't want the boss to come in and say, do this, this, and this.
So if I've created it, I'm going to support the damn thing because it's mine.
Right.
As
I have
opposed
ownership.
to, yeah, exactly right.
If you have skin in the game, you will support it. So people support what they create. So that was a huge message that I had to learn. So
great distinction.
So I think one thing to help people get over that fear of ever doing this is saying, chill out, because you don't have to have the right answers.
Right.
If you like people and you like creating and you like communicating, you're going to love this. If you hate people, this sucks. I mean,
If you hate people, business sucks.
right. Yeah. If you just don't like brainstorming ideas with people, the partnership model isn't for you. If you love creating ideas for people, this is going to be a good model for you.
So it really be a way of when you talk about this partnership model, what makes it really a partnership is not that they're partnering with you in marketing or distributing this product or service. What really makes them a partner is together you've come up with a way to give the customer some massively added value experience that enhances their brand.
Right.
And as a result, they're going to promote the hell out of it. And that's how you really get the leverage of this distribution, this marketing, this access, this trust, all those magical elements that usually take years or sometimes decades to obtain, not to mention enormous amounts of capital. But money by itself won't even get you.
Right. Right. And well, you do this better than anybody else. What's the best way to create a great connection between people? Create a unique experience together.
Right.
What's the best way to create a unique experience between two people? Make them create something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my partners, we create stuff. We sit in a room. I mean, when we first met, and I'm going through a couple different ideas, and you're getting lit up, and I'm getting lit up, and we're walk out of 3 hours later.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Because we're creating something together. Ideas are flying between us, and now there's magic. And now we're going to figure out the way to partner.
That's right.
But that chemistry that happens in that moment, that's invaluable.
And that's what makes the bond in the relationship as well, besides the business side.
Right. Tom Dewar is the senior vice president of Junior Achievement. He's been over there 30 years. He raises $300 million a year, he and his team, for I think one of the most important nonprofits in the world, Junior Achievement. They teach kids about entrepreneurship and financial literacy and workforce readiness.
Right.
So they're engaging youth in a fun and creative way with local business community leaders to understand business. I mean, it's invaluable.
Right.
And he tells a story of how we created our partnership. I went down, I met him at a conference in San Diego, and we literally met for 15 minutes. And there was this it was kind of a cool thing, but it was one of those, he was feeling me out, you know?
Right.
So I hand him Life's Golden Ticket. I said, man, there's no expectations. Read the book, and if the message of this book aligns with your people, then let's do something.
Right.
He says, yeah, okay, why don't we meet for tomorrow morning? I'll kind of skim through, and I was like, great. And I didn't take offense that he wasn't super engaged, because he didn't know who I was. And you think I look young now. I mean, this is years ago. And so I leave, I show up the next morning, and all of a sudden he's got the senior team sort of there, and he walks up to the table. His eyes are bloodshot. And he tells the story how he went back up to his hotel room with Life's Golden Ticket, and his family was there. So he had to go in the bathroom, and he sat in the bathroom till literally 4 in the morning reading the book.
Wow.
And he came down and he says, we have a similar heart.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And the entire thing started from there.
Wow.
And he says, what's the most important thing? Remember, he does $300 million at this. He's pretty good. He says, when he teaches my people, I have a program called Partnership Seminar. When people come to that, the first thing he says, what's most important in partnerships? He says, chemistry.
Right.
Not process, not outcome, not any BS. It's like, do we vibe together?
Right.
And he's had deals with huge organizations that died because there wasn't a relationship there. So anyone who's watching this or thinking about it, they just have to say, can you create with people? And do you enjoy that process? If you don't enjoy it, if it pains you when you say, I've got this great idea, and someone says, well, I don't really like that, and you get defensive and you don't like it when people say that, this isn't for you.
That's right.
And I'm always very transparent with that.
Right.
You know? So I think the first thing is understand that people support what they create, and you're going to create this along with them.
Right.
The second piece is, I tell entrepreneurs this, and I think this is critical, you're better at this than anybody else. And I haven't figured out exactly how to get people to understand this at the depth that you do. And that's, I tell entrepreneurs, never let your small business make you small-minded. They go, I can't work with Walmart. I can't work with Coca-Cola or this pharmaceutical company or Apple or Microsoft or whoever. I can't do it. I'm just one guy. Well, I was one guy.
Right.
But I had a vision for myself that was bigger than who I am.
Right.
And so whatever that psychology, and you're better than I am in figuring out what that is, but I know it's important that people don't let that small business shrink their ambition.
Right.
They say,
and part of that isn't that part of it too? I think you certainly had ambition for yourself, but having a vision larger than yourself is what gives people that energy and that drive to go through something. You only do so much for yourself. I always tell people motive does matter. So if my motive is only to get something from me, there's a part of me inside that knows I'm just trying to get this for me and there's a limit. But if I believe I'm doing this for my mother,
Yeah.
my children, my community, the world, then suddenly you're emboldened. And I think that was a piece for you besides your individual ambition that I think has been a big pull that's helped you to succeed. So I think people do have to find that. So if they understand this is a collaboration, the great news about that is I don't have to do it on my own. What I need is chemistry. What I need is to understand that human being, get inside of that human being, like that human being to some extent, and be willing to pitch and catch. And if I've got them now where they're helping me to create it, I've got that chemistry with them. I'm not letting myself be, stop before I even begin based upon the size of where I'm starting. I understand that's my advantage. I got more flexibility. What else do I need to know to keep myself, if I've tried that and it's not working, what's the comeback? How do you help people to recover from the fact that they felt like they've done everything right and still come down? Because they're going to face that. You and I both know that.
Right,
so
right.
let's tell them right now.
Yeah, the
How do
deal's
you
not
deal
going to
with
go through someday. And
not only someday, but many of them, correct?
many of the days, yeah. It's like David Bach, a friend of ours who wrote The Automatic Millionaire, he has this great thing. He says, one partnership can change your whole life.
Right.
He's a multi-million-dollar business based on 6 partnerships.
Right.
And he'll approach 50 to get those 6.
Right.
And he's, that's fine because he's doing huge deals.
Yeah.
I'll approach on general about 10 before I'll get a deal.
Right.
So I'm going to get turned down. So what do? I go, okay, why did that turn down? And I'll deconstruct it at an analytical level. I'll be like, okay, why did that go that way? And then I'll ask the person, I'm like, well, tell me, what happened there?
You ask them directly.
Ask them directly.
Yeah,
as soon as they say no, I'm like, okay, tell me what happened. And so many people say, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And I'll say, no, tell me what happened. And what's interesting is every time someone said no, the conversation after the no ends up being longer than often the original conversations.
Yeah.
Because I'll just be talking with them and I'll get so much insight for the next one. So the first thing
It gives
is
you a principle that makes you more successful for the future, or sometimes it might allow you to even turn the deal around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the first thing to do is to learn.
Right.
To say, okay, what happened, to learn from that. And then the second thing is to realize, so what?
Right.
The world is a very abundant place.
Right.
And I've got this philosophy, there's over 2 million nonprofits in the United States. If one says no, I'll find another.
That's great.
There's a Fortune 1000 that a lot of people know about, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, but there's well over 2,000 large, huge private companies.